Coast. Everything looked normal that October morning. It wasn't. Coast. The baby's name was Jasper, 9 months old, and he had been sitting on a playmat doing exactly what 9-month-olds do. Reaching for things, knocking them over, making small declarative sounds about the injustice of a world that kept putting things just past his reach. Coast. Atlas, the family's 4-year-old Bernese Mountain Dog, was watching. He was always watching Jasper. That part was not new. What was new was the blocking. Coast. 3 days earlier, Atlas had begun planting himself between Jasper and the nursery doorway whenever anyone tried to bring the baby into that room. Not growling, not showing any aggression, just positioning firmly with the specific weight of a 110-pound dog. That is decided it is not moving. Coast. Gwen Hartley had to physically push past him twice to put Jasper down for his morning nap, and both times Atlas followed them in and stood at the vent on the east wall and breathed long, deliberate inhales and stared at the wall. Coast. Gwen was a registered nurse, 4 years in labor and delivery. She had transitioned to home nursing when Jasper arrived. Coast. She knew behavioral changes in animals around newborns. She knew the research on territorial guarding, on resource competition, on how the arrival of an infant could disrupt an established animal's sense of domestic hierarchy. She called her brother-in-law, Marcus, who had trained dogs for 8 years. Coast. He's protecting the room, Marcus said on the phone, after she described it. It's a possession behavior. He's decided the nursery is his space and the baby is his ward, and he doesn't want anyone coming in or out on anyone else's terms. That tracks, her husband Owen said when she relayed the call. Coast. It tracked. It was the right framework. She had no other explanation. She moved forward under it. Coast. Atlas was confined to the living room during Jasper's naps for the next 3 days. He lay at the entrance to the hallway leading to the nursery and watched the door the entire time. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Coast. On the 4th day, Owen came home from work and found Atlas not in the living room, but in the kitchen, pressed against the back door, pawing at it, not barking, in a slow, rhythmic way that felt wrong. All 4 windows in the living room had been cracked. Coast. Gwen had done that an hour earlier because she said the house felt stale. Owen let Atlas out. The dog went directly to the side yard, sat down, and looked at the house. Owen stood at the back door and felt the air, and then went inside and called Gwen, who was upstairs. When did you open the windows? Coast. About an hour ago. The house smelled off. Kinda sweet a little. I thought the diaper pail. Owen went to the nursery. He stood in the doorway. There was a faint sweetness in the air that he could not quite locate. He went back to the kitchen and called the gas company. Coast. The technician arrived in 40 minutes. He had a CO detector on his belt. He walked into the nursery, looked at his detector, and walked immediately back out. Get your family out of the house, he said. Get out now. Coast. The furnace flue had cracked along the inside of the east wall. The wall Atlas had been breathing at. The wall Atlas had been staring at for 5 days. Coast. Slow enough that no human had registered symptoms. Slow enough that the CO detector in the hallway, positioned 12 feet from the source, had not yet reached its alarm threshold. Jasper's crib was 8 feet from the east wall. Coast. Dr. Kwame, the family's pediatrician, took a call from Gwen that evening. He was quiet for a long moment after she explained what had happened. Coast. Infants are significantly more vulnerable to CO than adults, he said. At the level the technician measured, with the duration of exposure your son had, the timeline of serious neurological risk was within days, possibly less. Coast. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Coast. Gwen thought about Atlas standing in the nursery doorway, refusing to let her bring Jasper in. She thought about every time she had pushed past 110 pounds of deliberate, unmovable dog. Coast. She thought about Atlas at the vent, breathing, reading, the air that she could not read, that no instrument in the house had yet measured, that no professional framework she held had taught her to recognize. She thought about Marcus saying possession behavior. Coast. They stayed at her mother's house for 9 days while the flue was repaired and the house was ventilated and tested. Atlas slept at the foot of Jasper's portable crib every night without being asked. Coast. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never ask for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Coast. On the first night back in their own home, Owen carried Jasper through the front door and Atlas was there. At the entryway, tail moving once. Low and steady, he walked beside Owen to the nursery. He stood at the vent. He breathed once, slow, testing the air. Then he turned and walked to the corner of the room and lay down. Coast. Owen stood in the doorway and watched him. He lay his son in the crib. Atlas put his chin on his paws, and the room was clean and quiet, and everyone was accounted for, and Atlas closed his eyes. Coast. The next story involves a husky who spent 7 nights in a row sitting outside a bedroom door, and what the neurologist found on the 8th morning.